Stuart Home also has an interesting view of race, which is an original formulation. I've never heard it, even from a Trotskyist, and he's not a Trotskyist. He believes that race doesn't exist, but the masses believe it does. Now that's an interesting formulation, because if you think about it, you either have it as a foregrounded form of iteration, it's being, Dasein, being in being, as Heidegger would call it. It's that which is there, it's biological, it's there, it's foundational, it's prior, it's elemental, it's essential. Or you don't believe that. Maoists and extreme communists believe that all humans are a white sheet of paper. Any sexuality, any ethnic specification, any culturalization, any level of intellect can be pre-programmed into you. As Maoist people would say, you can torture a man into progressive ideas to the degree that they're coming out of his ears. Do you remember what O'Brien says to Winston Smith in 1984? You know, first we make you love Big Brother, then we kill you. Don't you remember, Winston, he says, you're just a cell in the body of the party. Do you die if you cut your fingernails? Do you remember that? And the great actors like Sir Richard Burton and so on played that part. Now, Home's idea is interesting in a way because they believe in false consciousness, don't they? He's basically saying race is the false consciousness of the masses, but if nothing is prior, then reality is in the consciousness of the masses. Therefore, if the masses think that race exists, it does exist, even in far left terms, because only that which is thought, moment by moment in the struggle, exists. So in a strange sort of way, he's ended up with a right-wing deviation within Marxist cultural logic. He's actually got back to a position he says he refutes, but it's an interesting one. Because if you notice, the dip in biological thinking in the middle of the 20th century, as a reaction to the Second World War, is the high point for these type of new left ideas. Now that biology is re-emerging in the last 30 years. And it's very interesting, for example, that the Anti-Defamation League in the United States opposed the creation of the Human Genome Project. And many gay libertarian groups opposed the Human Genome Project. They're radically opposed to the idea of the biological investigation of the building blocks of life because it will lead to the possibility of acceptance by the masses of a prior essentialism. You know, there's an interesting incident last year when the Genome Project Scientific Review Board wrote to the German Academy of Sciences and said that in our opinion, life is 80% natural law and prior biological purpose. Not 60%, not 70%, but 80%. Man is socialized by 20%. And I view the socialization as environment, and environment is ecology, and ecology is a species of biology. So in a way, it's all biological. And the German Academy wrote back, we cannot accept this thinking. We cannot accept this thinking because we understand that your postulate is from good intentions, but it draws us perilously close to rejecting the methodology of the basic law upon which contemporary German governance, state, society, and academic learning is based. So the German government says that a particular scientific outcome is wrong, and as a citizen of the contemporary United German Republic, founded under occupation by Adenauer in 1948, you have to repudiate. You don't care what science says. We repudiate science. This is a revolutionary development, really, whereby the left, the organ of progress, is rejecting science. There's a concept on the new left of scientism. Scientism. Science is ugly, male, reactionary, authoritarian, phallocratic, all this sort of stuff. Strong streak of feminism in all of these discourses. The left has sort of given up on that. Many leftists are now debating about how they deal with biology. Peter Singer is head who wrote the book Animal Liberation, which founded that whole movement. Liberate the animals, you filthy speciesists, put down that ham sandwich, you know, that sort of thing. And Singer, of course, of a certain ethnicity, from Australia, where he was in the Australian Senate as a civil libertarian and green, radical green. He's a utilitarian. He's a very interesting thinker, because he's introducing a new hard liberalism. Singer says maybe biological ordinance is true. Maybe disability is inherited. Maybe gender is inherited. Maybe sexuality is due to brain function. Maybe the right is correct. But what you must do is you must pass every law and every methodology that lies behind the law, jurisprudence, to make sure that there is either equality of opportunity or equality of outcome, or those who proselytize for inequality of outcome are not allowed to affect it by the nature of their discourse. So what he's saying is that even if biology is unequal, you make the society so impervious to that logic, even though you've got a hierarchy, that it's not aware of that. That's the most important and intelligent form of far leftism. They can only sustain anti-science. They built their entire credo on science. They can't repudiate it. That's just a stunt for a couple of decades. They're going to have to accept the Human Genome Project. They're going to have to accept the biological and prior ordination of man. Every time I go into an NHS clinic, there's a leaflet for transplants. And in the middle of that leaflet, you're asked about your race. It says, are you white Caucasian? Are you Asian? Are you Negroid or African? Diaspora African, all these little boxes. And that's because human internal tissues will not transplant or graft as well in relation to one race as another. Prior racial difference within the taxonomy of the human, even at a physical level. If a scientist at Oxford or Cambridge or the London School of Economics had said that in the 1960s or 1970s openly, they'd have been rioting. They'd been rioting in the canteen, they'd been rioting in the lecture hall. The Special Patrol Group would have been on the canvas. He would have been hounded out of that place of learning. It's now in an NHS leaflet. Quietly, no fuss. It's just intruded there as a fact. Who can object to it? We're helping people. We're helping people. Now, talking about helping people, there are ultra-left groups, ultra-liberal groups in the United States who are campaigning against certain forms of medicine that affect individual ethnicities. The certain diseases that blacks and Africans suffer from, particularly sickle cell anemia, which is almost congruent to them. And certain drugs which have genetic potential and originate from some of the theory and experimentation of the Human Genome Project react primarily on their group. And there are ultra-liberal groups who are campaigning to not allow the Food and Drug Agency to license these. Why? Why? Because it undermines the idea that man is a white sheet of paper, that you can do what you want, that there is no power identity. They would rather blacks suffer than that these drugs were produced, because they admit the prior biological differentiation of the human. And when you begin there, when you begin with such a monstrous prior essentialism, the doors to you-know-what are swinging open, you see. So you must close down the thing before you even begin to agree with what you disagree with. Thank you very much.